Hey, folks, this is Rebel Rousing Rich Bergeron.
And Psychic Non-Pleasure. Pickleball this weekend.
And our third leg of the show. Tony is indisposed at the moment. Um, I got to bring a dog home. So, big surprise. Yeah, right. He'll be on in a few minutes, and we'll get to him then. But so gives us Tom and I a chance to jump right into the MMA. We had a really good card last week. Again, I I did not determine that the main event was going to go 5 rounds until about third round of the fight. And I had not won any other bets, so I was heavily betting on the third round submission for Allen, or knockouts for Curtis. I still don't know which way it was going to go, but I kind of expected it. Generally, overall, first instinct was just a good money line bet for Allen, but I had that paired with so many other things, and not every fight panned out, of course, as it often goes. But anyway, I think I've got a better picture of it this week. I listened all day to people talking about UFC 300 and who to bet on. And one of the most interesting presentations was Alex Volkanovski, being a fighter himself. And so he was going through every single fight, and true to his gag with the people calling him old and him falling asleep all the time. I actually did fall asleep at the end, but at that point I'd already watched like three other ones on UFC 300, and he put me to sleep. It's just more than what he's been doing in his fights lately, unfortunately. But yeah, we missed the show last week, so we had another one before that. Blanchfield versus Fierro. That one also I did not do that well on. The whole card. Fierro I thought would get the knockout, but I did have her pegged to get that win. Um, Joaquin Buckley taking up Vicente Luque. I remember I definitely favored Luque in that one. Weidman beating Bruno Silva. That one,
Controversially
yeah,
beating
yes.
Bruno Silva. Controversially.
Eye poke involved, and all kinds of bullshit. And then the crazy thing was, um, so one of the ESPN guys, I think it was Brett Okamoto, put out like his favorite um, crazy pick of the week, like underdog pick of the week, and he had Chris Weidman by TKO. So of course, you look at that way that fight ends, you think it's a TKO. So not only should have been a TKO, but the fucking betting platforms actually paid out on a TKO and then retracted it because they changed it to a technical decision. I was like, what the hell is that all about? That was a TKO, There's no two ways about it. So that was complete bullshit. So I ended up putting the money down because the guy suggested it, and I see it come in, and then boom, comes back out. So that was some bullshit, and some other good fights on that card. Nate Landwehr coming in and making quick work of Jamal Emmers. That was not one I predicted. Dennis Bazuchka was heavily underdogged before this one. Nobody expected him to win. He had not won a UFC fight yet, and he looked just amazing in there. Uh, not like he's going to start marching up the rankings, but he made Connor Matthews have to do some major work to even look competitive in that fight. So yeah, it was just some pretty good card there. Kyle Nelson also kind of an upset there over Bill Algeo. Algeo was heavily favored going in, and that was a Nelson TKO at the end of the first. So lots of crazy stuff. And then we had the Professional Fighter League open up April 4th with their first event of the season. Their next one's going to be tomorrow night, I believe. And the big heavyweights in the main event for the show. TKO in the first round for Valentin Moldavsky. This was down in Texas. Ante Valencia falls to 24-7. Moldavsky 14-3 now. And then we had Linton Vassell went down by TKO in the third to Denis Goltsov. And Liz Carmouche getting back in the win column. The victory over Juliana Velasquez. And Dakota Ditcheva taking out Lisa Malden by TKO in the very first round. Some knees and punches. Daniel James at a 267-pound catch weight. A little too fat for heavyweight. TKO'd Marcelo Golm in the first round. That was just 1 second left in the round. Good timing there. And Blagoy Ivanov. I know from now on, after one card, I had bets on him. You never bet on his opponent to take him out in the distance. He is always going to decision, even when he loses. He rarely wins, but when he loses, he's always going to decision. No doubt about it. There's something about him. He's very durable. Anyway, I didn't bet on him this week. Taylor Santos versus Ilara Joanne. That was a submission rear naked choke for Santos. Oleg Popov, another heavyweight, TKO'd Steve Mowry. 3 minutes and 47 seconds into the second. And we had Kana Watanbe at 129-pound catchweight, beating Shanna Young by unanimous decision. Jenna Bishop at flyweight took out Chelsea Hackett by armbar submission in the first round. Dimitri Ivy over Lucas Brennan by unanimous decision before that. And first fight of the night, Bryce Meredith at a bantamweight. And a bantamweight fight took out Ty Johnson by unanimous decision. And that was it. Chris Cyborg ready to headline Green Bay Fight Night opposite of Woodnelly Figueroa, who is 0-2 on April 27th. So, easy one for her, should be anyway. First Curtis. I have this tuned up. Oh, there it is. So, we got UFC 300 coming up. Main event of Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill. Of course, the scuttlebutt around this one seems to be revolving around whether Jamal Hill has actually healed enough from his Achilles injury. You know, most professional athletes, they have an injury like that, they're out for at least a year. And I believe it's been 9 months since he came out on YouTube and said he had suffered the injury. So, I mean, it's one thing to be healed from the injury. It's another thing to be able to go back to full strength, get back to where you were before the injury even happened. So, that's giving a lot of bettors doubts. But Jamal Hill famously beat the ever-living crap out of Alex Pereira's trainer, to Glover Teixeira. So, I don't know. Pereira always surprises me. That's the thing.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he is, but I saw the most amazing video of Pereira, who has a completely different look. He's got a little bit more hair. It makes me like think he's a different guy, but I was like, oh, that is Pereira. Let's to take a second look. But there was a video of Jamal Hill going up to him, asking him to sign a shirt for him and telling him he was a big fan of his. And it was like it was like for this UFC event. Like it wasn't like months ago. So he said, even though we're going to beat each other up, I'm a big fan. I'd like you to sign this. And
Yeah,
I
I've seen that.
so
Well,
you think about body language and psychology, right? That can be everything going into a fight. And Pereira kind of, took it in stride, but he was kind of looking at him funny, like, is this kid serious? So he definitely kind of took the advantage right there, I think. It's like a little bit of a mind chess he was playing. Um, yeah, yeah. But,
so
I mean, if Hill says he's ready, he's probably ready. He says he's going to knock him out, so he's going to be aggressive, apparently, or at least he's trying to make Pereira think he's going to be aggressive. Um, Pereira really only thing he has to worry about is getting taken down and grounded and pounded, because that's probably the only weakness he has. And if
sure he's
yeah, with Teixeira, Teixeira having the inside information about having actually fought him too, kind of plays into Pereira's hands. He is the current favorite, I believe. So I'm gonna say Pereira by TKO or decision on that one. I just think that's yeah, yeah. I mean, because think about how good Pereira has been with such little full scale MMA training. So the more time passes, the more stuff under his belt and experience that he gets in actual fights. He's just gonna become so much better. And I don't see it getting derailed by this one. Yeah, yeah. The only thing I worry about is he does have a very open stance. He does take a lot of shots when he's given them. So Jamal Hill, with some straight punches, while Pereira's coming in there with haymakers, could take him out. At any point. But I mean, that's the healthy Jamal Hill. We don't know how healthy he's going to be, and it's some people might consider it unsportsmanlike, but Pereira's going to be kicking that leg. He had the injury. They worked for Brad Tavares, right? Against Chris Weidman. Yeah, yeah, right. Right, right, right.
seems like that kind of person, but this is a makes that who he should be. You know,
Right. I don't know about this next one. It's a title fight. It's the co-main event. It's females, Xiaonan Yan and Wiley Zhang. I'm probably not going to bet on it. You know, I don't know who's going to win. I don't know who's going to lose. I guess China loses because this fight is not in China. Oh yeah, yeah.
you've
Well, I did like a Shoin-ryu or something karate briefly, um, and there was a lot of like combat based moves where you go for not only the jugular but you go for the ball socket. You do this move called the lawnmower to do an escape, and you don't actually carry out in training, but you make the motion like you're supposed to. It kind of confused me because I was like, I'm trying to do this for mixed martial arts. I don't want to get in these bad habits of ripping people's nuts off. Yeah, the escapes they call them. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So Wiley Zhang, last time she fought was when I was in the audience at UFC 292, and Zhao Yan just beat one of the legends of the sport, who's also on the card, Jessica Andrade, with a first round TKO. So yeah, this one's going to be a 50-50 for me. If I had to gun to my head and they said you had to pick a winner, I'd say Riley will win by decision in that one. But you never know. I just think she's fought the bigger names. Has a little bit more experience. But yeah, she looked pretty good in Boston. But I mean, it was weird to me that she had such a huge fan base there. Like maybe she's just popular in general because she's been around a while, but man, like between her and O'Malley, I think they had the biggest cheers from the crowd. And I can understand because it's Boston, Irish, you know. So that's probably a big factor. But anyway, yeah, it's a big Chinese support there. I know there's a big Chinatown section in Boston, so maybe that's why. But when I went to Worcester to cover the Pujanowski versus Sylvia heavyweight cage fight there was a very heavily uh, populated crowd with as far as the Polish folks out in Worcester, Massachusetts. So it's weird, you know. You never know these communities exist in certain places, but yeah, Wiley Zhang's not a fun one. Wiley Zhang?
no,
Oh,
so the,
Pujanowski won. Um, he just did enough takedowns and wore out Sylvia. And I saw Sylvia backstage. I'll never forget. You know, it was kind of like the image that stuck in my head. You know, pitchers come out after games and they got their arms all wrapped up and iced. So fucking Sylvia comes walking down the hallway with his knees just duct taped, ice all over him, and he's like stumbling down the hallway. So like it was obvious he wasn't going to be doing it much longer. You know, not at that level anyway. He was hurting. And Herb Dean gave me his phone number and never answered his phone afterwards. That was great. He wanted to do interviews. He was very not well known, as well known as he is today anyway. But, yeah. And then Butterbean was promoting it, so that was great. And then I got to meet and take a picture with Boss Rutan, one of my favorite pictures. Anyway, so yeah, that's how I see that one going. China's gonna cheer either way. Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway fighting for the BMF belt, which means nothing except for bragging rights. It's one I've seen people predict both ways, but Volkanovski loves Max Holloway on this one, and I kind of agree. Justin Gaethje, remember he comes over from one of the feeder leagues. He has World Series of Fighting when he was there. He has fought some of the bigger names in the UFC, but has just never gotten to the pinnacle and stayed there. So I think this is one of those fights where they're both strikers primarily, but Gaethje in recent fights has become way more technical. You know, he first started out, he came in with reckless abandon. He slugged it out in the middle of the cage with people. He just did not give a crap about his chin. You see him in his last few fights. I don't know if he's at a different training camp or he's just matured. but he fights very technically. And Max Holloway's never been stopped, and he has just some of the best boxing in the whole organization. So I think, even though he's an underdog, I think Max Holloway takes this one by knockout or unanimous decision. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. What's your crystal ball say about that one?
Well,
He has been. Yeah. Well, that was wild. That was a great one. Yeah.
he knew that get close. I mean, how many times did he come so close?
Yep.
And I just think right now,
Right.
okay,
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is this is a fight where, I mean, it's a very historical event, number 300. You've got two fighters on it who could potentially retire if they win. Maybe even if they lose. Max Holloway might be one of them. I think if he wins his fight and gets a little belt, even if it's the BMF belt, I think that's enough for him to say, all right, I've done enough in this sport. I'm going. And Jim Miller is on the earlier card, but I don't know if he's going to win. If he wins, it's probably a done deal. Being the only fighter to have fought in 100, 200, and 300. It's a pretty special
yeah,
thing. But anyway, yeah, I could see Gaethje winning too. I think Holloway just has the better uh, experience on the feet, and I don't know. I don't think Gaethje has that killer instinct anymore. It's not just about not going in and slugging and being stupid. He doesn't seem to have that want to knock a person out as much as he used to. He doesn't have that urge to just go out there and finish. Like he's totally happy getting a decision if that's the way the fight has to go, which is smart for him physically. But the UFC has constantly elevated people who put on a show, and that's kind of why he fit in so well in the beginning. And now he's kind of moving away from that, and he's a smart, boring. But we'll see. You know, not boring. He's not boring, but I mean, he fights smarter than
yeah,
he used to. And then one of the toughest ones on this card to really analyze, we've got the up and comer Armin Sarukian and the established legend Charles Oliveira. And you can bet there's going to be some submission attempts in this one from both guys, I'm sure. Armin has pretty much stopped everybody in recent fights. And Oliveira has kind of been back and forth, but he's fighting at the upper echelon of the rankings all the time. He never fights a cheap date, as you would say. So
yeah.
Armin coming up there, he's just so naturally talented, and he's got such a solid chin. I think a lot of people are leaning towards him. uh, but Oliveira is a good is a good person to hedge a bet on. Maybe pick
Yeah.
for submissions.
uh,
Yeah, I think he is definitely worth a flyer on. Put $5 on him to win in a certain
Even
round. Right. And Sarukin's on a quick turnaround too. I mean, he didn't really expend too much energy in his last fight, but he's on a quick turnaround. Oliveira's had a little bit more time to get ready for this. Um, but Sarukin is just so damn dangerous. He is the perfect mix of TKO or submission type, fighter that always tries for the stoppage. And, he's going to get you one way or the other. And Oliveira is more of a submission artist, but he can knock you out too. I think he has a little bit of reach on him too. So
yeah,
this is going to be one of those fight of the night bonus fights. Minus 2,100 for Bo Nickel on the money line. Yeah,
I have.
right. Well, I mean, no matter who wins, I mean, I think Nickel's going to win. Everybody, I think, thinks Nickel's going to win. But no matter who wins, you can always do the under and over bets. And I noticed the over is positive. So if you do over 1.5 rounds, that's the fight's just got to last over a round and a half, and you win that bet. So I think that's the smartest way to go, rather than to try to think that Cody's going to get the upset and bet that kind of positive money on it. And then there's
Yeah.
always submission. Bo Nickel by submission is a pretty good bet that's been recommended. I think that was Volkanovski's pick, and no, that was Bisping's pick. No, right. Cody's pretty experienced. He's been around a while, so I think it's the biggest step up Bo Nickel's taken so far. But they're already treating this guy like a future champion, so
Yeah.
you never know. And then we have Alexander Rakic, Rocket fighting Jiri Prochazka. 29 4-1. Rakic is 14-3. I like Prochazka. Yeah. Yeah, Rakic is not getting a lot of picks from anywhere, believe it or not. Neither is Calvin Qatar in the seventh fight of the night. He's fighting Aljamain Sterling, who's, not too far removed from getting beat by Sean O'Malley. Um, and Calvin Qatar is a way better boxer than Sean O'Malley. Yeah, yeah. That was a bad one. Right. Yeah. So that's going to be a Styles type fight. There's going to be a lot of wrestling and a lot of takedown defense from Calvin Guitar. A lot of wrestling from Sterling. But we'll see. Holly Holman.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the bookies really fucked up on the next one. Um, I don't really think they know MMA as much as they think they do. Because they put Holly Holm down as a very heavy underdog against Kayla Harrison. I think they're looking at the record rather than the quality of opposition. Uh, Kayla really has not had to fight any world beaters. And she lost to this Larissa Pacheco, one of her first loss of her career. Obviously has a lot more fights than Holly Holm in MMA, but not as much combat sports experience considering all Holly's boxing experience.
Uh,
And the other thing is that people are discounting in this fight. Kayla Harrison has to cut like 20 pounds for this goddamn fight. It's gonna be a grind, and is she gonna have the kind of power she has at her other, where she's been successful? She's going from, I believe, lightweight to bantamweight. Is that what it is? Yeah, lightweight to bantamweight. Yeah, yeah, right. All right. Kudos to Kayla for coming in and kicking down the door and saying, "Give me your best fighter you can give me for this." Yeah, Clarissa needs work. She needs work. That would be too quick of an exit out of the PFL for Clarissa because she would leave with a bad beating in that one. I think because she's just too unproven on the ground. Kayla Harrison would ruin her at this stage. After watching her last fight, I mean, she was literally like gassing out. She couldn't really do much takedown defense, and her best hope is that punching. The hooks. She chose pretty good hooks on the feet, but just couldn't get a girl out of there the last time. Anyway, next one's a little tightly contested. A lot of people um, hedging their bets on this one. Sadiq Yusuf versus Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez is pretty damn dangerous lately. He's won a lot of his fights in pretty quick fashion. He's a very slick jiu-jitsu guy. He actually trains a lot of other fighters. Yusuf has not as many fights, but is equally as dangerous. So it's going to be a good one. I think Lopez has the edge, but Yusuf could pull out the upset. Yeah. Yeah.
a little, everything's going good for him now.
And then you got the first four fights, the early prelims, they call them. They sound like they could be a fight card of their own. The main card, we got lightweights Jalen Turner, 14-7, fighting Renato Carnero, who's 18-5-1. Carnero got himself a black eye for trying to box too much in his last fight, but he showed he can hang in there with the striking when he needs to, and then eventually he's going to submit you. So Jalen Turner with those 7 losses, I don't know. I just think he's not up to the task. Carnero, talk about being on a tear. He just seems to pull it out no matter what. So, and then he's going to give you a crazy speech at the end. So, I don't know. I don't know. I think Jalen Turner could knock him out. He's got the skills, but is he going to have the technique to avoid the submissions? That's the question. And then we've got another legend on the card, Jessica Andrade, 25-12 is her record, facing Marina Rodriguez, who is 17-3-2. I like this one to go the distance. If you're going to do any bet, because I don't want to pick either girl. If I had to pick, official result, official winner, I'd say Rodriguez wins by decision. She got 9 decisions, 7 knockouts. So maybe TKO or decision two is a good bet. But she's lost 2 of her last 3. She lost to some very, very much so lesser opponents. Not really lesser. Amanda Lemos was probably, considered no cheap date. Verna Jandaroba, though, is kind of one of those girls that hasn't really gone very far lately. Lost to her, so I think it's possible for Andrade to win this one. I mean, it is UFC 300, so that could definitely be an opportunity for her to retire with a win at a big event if she's thinking about retiring. But she has lost 3 of her last 4. The only problem there, if you're going to criticize her for that, is every one of those girls she lost to is the world beater. But she's been taken out before the end of the second round in all 3 of those. And the only girl she's beaten recently is Mackenzie Dern, who has shown a lot of growing pains recently in her game. So I don't know. I think Marina has what it takes, but Andrade also could win the day. I think Andrade is the underdog, but could be a live one. And then a real tough one to analyze: Bobby Green and Jim Miller. Volkanovski thinks Bobby Green's got too much action, too much movement. It's gonna confuse Jim Miller. But Jim Miller has had a lot of finishes in his last few fights, and he is coming up to a very significant point in his career. He's got 37 wins, 17 losses. Bobby Green, though, also has north of 30 wins, 31, 15 losses, 1 draw. So on paper, it's a great matchup, but the only thing I see in this fight that Jim Miller has a disadvantage in is speed. Bobby Green's just a firecracker. He's just always running around, trying to be fast. And the last fight, he got punished for that very quickly. I don't know if Jim Miller can come up with that kind of power, but I like him in the grappling. I think he grapples to a submission at some point.
Well, and then also remember that timing can negate speed.
Yeah.
And I think with Jim's experience,
yeah,
he'll get his timing down. So I know. I mean, Green's a better natural athlete. You can tell he's got great movement, good,
right.
A lot of speed. But I think the timing can set it down. And I got to go with Jim on the ground for sure.
Definitely. Then we have the first fight of the night, Davison for Figueiredo against Cody Garbrandt. And, Garbrandt has looked pretty decent in his last few fights, but he seems to be fighting so cautiously because he's so deathly afraid of that knockout.
Right. Never been the same after that knockout. Well, how many times was he knocked out? Knocked out twice by, where's my brain going? Agilita, he was knocked out twice, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then he was knocked out. I think he suffered another knockout or 2 after that. So I think he's damaged good. I mean, when he beat, when he got the title, boy, he was just turning out.
There he is. Yeah, so
But when he beat Dominic Cruz, he was at a peak. But I don't know, something's changed.
Yeah, so I don't see him doing that well against Davison Figueiredo. I think this one might end up being a loss for him, especially if Figueiredo ends up on the ground with it. He's just so slick on the ground. He's such a great wrestler. He'll hit you with submissions, so I don't give Cody Garbrandt much credit going into this one. And we got a Professional Fighters League event to talk about for tomorrow night. We'll save that because we got Some boxing stuff to talk about with the tornado. How we doing, Tony?
I saw Jake Paul's brother last week.
Oh yeah,
He was
Logan.
on the Wrestlemania card.
Nice. Did you actually go to the event?
Yeah, I went Sunday night.
Oh, awesome.
See, I do things, and sometimes they work out, even though I'm stupid.
Mhm.
I use my stupidity as an advantage sometimes. Um, so yeah, a few months ago, it gets announced, right? I'm like, I'm going, and part of the reason was, the storyline going into WrestleMania was Cody Rhodes, son of the legendary Dusty Rhodes, and he had to finish his story. So came back. He was in WWE like 15 years ago. Really, you know, you know, he was a character that was not. He wasn't great. We thought he was talented, but his character wasn't great. He went through a few different, alterations and never really caught on. And he went to another company, pretty much started another company, developed a persona, and it caught. So he came back 2 years ago, and his first match, tears his three, and he's out for a month again. He comes back, and he gets the title shot last year, and he always says he wanted to win the W title, and presented to his father passed away years ago. And that was like last year. He goes in, and it's shady finish, but he loses. So then they build up a whole year, and he gets the chance. And the way they worked it out was great. That place was really, really rocking and rolling, and it was loud and it was on. So when it got announced, I said, "Yeah, I'm going." It's the very first WrestleMania in 1985. There was no such thing as cable show. If you wanted to see an event like that, similar to Hagler Hearn or some of the big fights at that time, you had to buy a ticket at a theater, um, and you'd watch it on what they call closed circuit. And the very first WrestleMania, my dad took me to the Philadelphia Spectrum, and we watched it on closed circuits. And I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And this was a chance for me to finally go to WrestleMania, because the last time I was in Philly was 1999. That weekend, I was in Reno, Nevada, trying to help coach that boy Chip Spaccio against our former rival, the 6'7" guy from Ashland.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Latin.
Didn't work out as well for Chuck either. Um, so when this was announced, I said, I'm going. Back in August, I see a thing for a website to order the priority ticket. Sure. Click, and I see it comes with some, extra add-ons. I don't know what the hell they are. Click, I'm going. But I don't care as long as I'm in there. And so they send me my ticket, via Ticketmaster. They send me a hat, they send me a lanyard, they send me a bag. If I go in there, I go to the convention center, about 7, 8 miles away, pick up my shit. Well, shit, it was just a 4 hour, you know, that it was the best quote, my best quote of the day. When I go there and I'm getting my priority access thing, and they're like, Hulk's gonna be here. Ah, my buddy, right?
Mhm.
And well, I didn't know my priority access didn't get me in his line. So I see the one line come up, and it's a long ass line. I said, "What's going on?" Oh, Hulk's going to be here, and I said, "I got this wristband that said that the wristband doesn't get you in this line. That was just for a lot of the priority, but you'd have to purchase this." I said, "Listen, I was 5 feet from the man 3 weeks ago singing karaoke at his bar. I think I'm good to go. I don't think I need to purchase no ticket to get in no line."
Mhm.
Just, well, no, I remember funny to go up there and like, I'm missing thing we got back again. The biggest party at the that sausage I was included in. All the food was free. They had some wrestlers there, hung out there. Well, I walk in, I see one of the security guards. He looks at me, he's like, "Oh, you here for this?" I'm like, "Oh, you recognize me?" He's like, "Yeah, I recognize you." So I hung out there for a few hours. And then I went across the street, and it, I wasn't there Saturday night. I heard it was a full Saturday night. It was cold.
Yeah.
People like I had the two guys that I hang out with, these two big Puerto Rican guys. I see them at the Phillies games all the time. I call them my bodyguards because the one guy said he wanted to get. They had an Eagles Wrestlemania football jersey. He wanted to get it, but he had to make sure that the 3XL would fit.
Right.
He's not a small dude, so
Mhm.
they find me. Out of 73,000 people, these guys find me. And we hang out for a while. We're having a great time. And the one guy texted me the night before and he goes, "Bring a jacket." So I'm going up to my seat right in the lounge. Cool, but it was the whole kind of tank. The guy in the seat next to me want to win a title. Well, he looked around and said, "Hey, buddy, hey, what's up?" He's like, "I flew in Friday from Phoenix, Arizona." Well, he's telling me, "And you're in a tank?" Yeah. Yeah. I mean, by the end of the night, I had a thin hoodie on, my Hulkamania hoodie. Um, but I'll tell you, man, I walked out of there. I got home at like 2 in the morning. I was gone for 18 hours, and it was a long day. I would do it again in a heartbeat. Next year might be in Vegas, Rich. We might be having to go.
Yeah.
But it was like the thing with Cody Rhodes was he had to finish his story. You know, so he had to finally win that title, and he had like a taste for a year after losing like years. He had to finish his story. That was the storyline. And I said, for me, it was kind of parallel because my dad took me to that first WrestleMania in 1985, be on that big screen. And when it was in town in 1999, I couldn't, like Cody lost last year. He didn't finish his story. I said, and I had to wait 25 years. But I was like, I finally got to go. And it was like, I finished my story. I got to go to WrestleMania in person. 40th WrestleMania. I got,
Mm.
and, you know, I had goosebumps all week. I was even watching some of the replays the other night, like Saturday night they had some good matches on. They had like the one match, two big guys in Mexican wrestling match now, and it was Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson.
Mm. Mm.
Um, it was really good. Like I said, look, Logan Paul was in one of the matches. Um, I think it's can't
Mm.
and I post a lot of posts. One thing before you do anything is just, I know Tom will get a kick out of this more than anybody. And I don't know if you saw on Facebook or if the camera's two photos. Well, that's a priority fan back now. And I'm in the Hulk Hogan tank top. And the Hogan tank top I have is black and it's got a picture on the front like a caricature picture. And I like this tank top because especially when I go into the double bicep, bicep flex, I look deeply in. And the way the shirt, it makes me look like I don't have much of a gut. If I turn the wrong way, or if I lean back, then I look like I got a gut. Like, but when I flex it purposefully, I look good. I look like I got a thick under it. Now, go through there. We photo by the one ring there. So I get the line, move it. Boom, boom, boom. Give your phone to one of the guys from the crew. He'd hold it up, snap two photos, look at them, they good? Yeah, good. Here's your phone, get out.
Mhm.
So I go up there, I do the double buy. Photos look great, and I go. Then I see they had this giant belt, like a 5 foot tall.
Mhm.
I want to get a picture with that too, right? And I knew I was getting ready to leave in like a half hour. I had to go to my next thing. But I got to get a picture of this belt. I get this line, and this line is moving at the pace of basically an old lady walking uphill,
Mhm.
with flip flops on. Now, what the take it so long? And I think the reason is the guy that was taking the photos thought he was trying to win a Pulitzer Prize
Mhm.
for the next photograph in the National Geographic magazine.
Mhm.
He's getting everybody's phone, and if let's say you had like like one of the just about like song. Just like, let me come out, let's go up, let me go down, let me go inside. He's going crazy like that. Like I think she's gonna win a whole prize. We finally go there. I hand him my phone, and I'm like, I just need one picture. So let me get a good one. And I'm like, I throw him a double dice card. This is the only code I'm doing. You throw it in there, and he's zooming in, zooming out, zooming up, zooming down. Right, now and I'm thinking in my mind, buddy, give me the fucking phone back. I can't hold my gut in any longer. Like the blue here and I'm like,
Nice.
but I had a great time. Um, I think we got some photos now. We haven't seen them yet, but
Yeah,
well,
I totally had no idea. My fiance's son actually went to the whole event too.
oh,
WrestleMania. I don't. He just made the decision on a whim. He lives in North Carolina, so he just got on a plane and went. So yeah,
really?
got to do what you got to do. So anyway, yeah, I hadn't really seen much even written about it. I don't really follow wrestling as closely as I used to, but it's interesting to see that.
You know, I'm
Oh
and
yeah,
I really
they've been
I love
promoting the
that so
hell out
much.
of those shows. I have actually wanted to watch a couple of them, because I obviously recognize more of the stars that one of my good friends used to watch every WrestleMania. From everybody that fought around the time of Hogan and Ultimate Warrior and all those guys. Those are the stories I love to watch about. Uh, and we had a good guest in Diamond Dallas Page years ago. Ugh. We'll get him back on. I'm sure we could get a little flyer out to him through our John Bone Shattuck guest there. He does his whole program now. He's certified.
A friend of mine, so,
Yeah.
when I was younger, he makes where he painted his face, where the shoulder blades, and I became friends with him 15 years ago. He worked actually when I flew there, he embroidered me so for an angel.
Hmm.
So he would be there for like, well, finish.
Nice. Very nice. All right. Well, we got some boxing results to go through. I didn't have good luck in the fights last week, betting on either MMA or boxing. I put like four, no, three boxing bets together, parlays. I picked a knockout where I should have picked a decision. That screwed up my last hope. But I got this main event right back in at the Fontainebleau in Las Vegas, which is one of the newest casinos out there. Um, Back when I was out there, that was the Cosmopolitan, which just I think a couple of years ago sold for $2 billion. But Fontainebleau is like from the commercials I've seen, it's like the Cosmopolitan squared. It's much better. And I remember when I was out there, they were still building it, and it had like been on so many different owners and scandals, and it was just a brutal build. It just took forever. So it better be good. But they had these fights there, and Richardson Hitchens in the main event did what he does, stayed undefeated. over Gustavo Lemos, who was also undefeated going in and looking for his 30th win. Instead, he gets his first loss. And then a bit of a surprise, Sky Nicholson coming in at 9-0. Won a unanimous decision over Sarah Mahfood with a little bit more experience, coming in at 14-1. That was for the WBC World Featherweight title. And we had a younger, less experienced guy beating a veteran of the sport at flyweight. Galal Yafai proved to 7-0 with a knockout of Augustin Gaucho. Came in at 21-1. That was for the WBC International Flyweight title. And Diego Pacheco, that was the guy I thought was going to get the knockout. I had him by knockout against Sean McCalman, who was coming in at 15-0, but really didn't have the quality of opposition that Diego had, and still went to unanimous decision. That was for two a little bit less recognized belts: the WBC USA Super Middleweight and the WBO International Super Middleweight belts. And then the WBC Continental America Super Featherweight title went to Mark Castro, stays undefeated at 12-0 after beating Abraham Montoya, close to 22-6. And that was really the biggest fight card of the week last week. I don't know if he's related to Hector, but Juan Carlos Camacho fought down in Puerto Rico. Proved to 17-1 with a UD over Josue Morales. Gets his 13th loss to go 27 wins and 4 draws. I believe there was a Friday card too. Posted some bets on Friday. There's a recent fight somewhere. No, I just it's not on. Anyway, so upcoming fights. Oh, we also missed one of the biggest upsets in boxing in a long, long time. Sebastian Fundora beating the crap out of Costa Tszyu. Then there was really a bloodbath. Big cut on his friggin' top of his head and all kinds of factors there. And there's obviously going to be an immediate rematch. So.
Yeah. So, and things I'm gonna pop in on that one. Um, so, anyway, like, think like, which was Ramirez. Um,
Oh yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
I remember watching one of the fight.
Wasn't there a Rocky movie where they cut his eye open in the corner? Something. Oh, yeah. Well, I remember that. I was watching that one. Never even heard of that. Yeah. Yeah. Rocky Marciano with his busted nose against President Charles. So anyway, yeah, that was some craziness, and Fundora, of course, had a choice to whether he was going to honor the rematch, and graciously has done so. So that fight will be coming up. But it's an interesting way to lose your first fight when you're that kind of a son of a legend and all that, and you're trying to prove yourself as a known quantity. Is that an automobile accident joke? Yeah. Yeah. I read it the other day. Fundora agreed to it. They might not have signed it, but he's agreed in principle. Yeah. Unintended joke of the week. Yeah. All right. So Friday night we got somebody's O's got to goes on a fight card in France of all places. David Papeau, 28-0 with one draw, fighting for the WBO Global Welterweight title against John Miguez, who's 17-0-1 at welterweight. And we got just Jaysa, Jeyssa. That's a weird first name. Jaysa Marcel, 12-0, fighting Mary Aina Abbey, who is 11-0 bantamweight. Somebody's always got to go in both of those ones. That's on Friday night. Tomorrow night, And we got some titles south of the border. Got Tobias Reyes, 14-0-1, fighting Sixto. Talk about a weird name. Sixto Dionel Perez, 5-1-2 against 14-0-1 for the South American flyweight and WBO Latino flyweight titles. Sixto. That's a weird one. And then we go to Italy. Dario Morello, 22-1, fighting Luca Ciancone, who's 9-0-2 at middleweight for the WBC Mediterranean middleweight title. That'd be funny if it's, like, how they always do the Eurasian titles and stuff like that, and it's like a Mexican guy fighting for it.
Yeah, right.
It's the Mediterranean title, and an American guy's fighting for it. Yeah. All right. Then in Manchester, UK on Saturday. Instead of Friday the 13th, it's Saturday the 13th. That's kind of funny. UFC is having UFC 300 on the 13th of all days. It's one of my two lucky numbers, 47 and 13. All right, so big fight there. Jordan Gill, 28-2-1, fighting Zelfa Barrett, who is 30-2 at super featherweight. And then we've got a co-main event. Looks like Ellie Scottney, 8-0, and Segaline Lefebvre, who is 18-0 for the IBF World Super Bantamweight title and the WBO World Super Bantamweight. And a female fight. Rhiannon Dixon, 9-0, looking for number 10. Fighting Karen Elizabeth Carbajal, 22-1 at lightweight. Fighting for a WBO World Lightweight title there, which is vacant. And then ESPN Plus got a little fight card on Saturday. Ruben Villa, 21-1, fighting Christian Cruz Chacon, 22-6-1. And Jared Anderson, 16-0, fighting Riyad Murhi, 32-2. By the way, that Villa Chacon is a featherweight fight. This is a heavyweight fight between Anderson and Murhi. Jared Anderson, 16-0, number 21 in the world. Murhi is 32-2, but he's number 30 in the world. So that's kind of weird. Just because the other guy's undefeated, he's ahead of him. And then we got Charlie Suarez, 16-0, and Luis Coria, 15-6 at super featherweight on the same card. I guess that's it. We go all the way to the 20th of April after that. The 13th. Big fight news in the female boxing arena. We have talk about the Paul brothers. Jake Paul's protege here, Amanda Serrano, former guest of ours on the show a couple times. She is going to be beating Dana White to the punch as far as being the first combat sports event at the Sphere in Las Vegas. I haven't been there in so long. I was never there at the time when they were actually building that one, but
Yeah, my first trip to Vegas was
yeah. Mm. Yeah, like it's been in progress for like 3 or 4 years, but last year it's been in operation, I think.
pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Reminds me actually of in Boston when they had the Science Museum. They put this thing called the Omni Theater there, and it was like you sat in these tier-like stairs, and the screen was like a reverse eyeball, like, like a satellite dish, kind of all around you, and it was a very crazy experience. Made you a little bit dizzy at first, but once you got used to it, it was cool. But they not only have the big screens and the LED technology all around the place to do all kinds of colorful stuff, but they also have stages and other stuff. So I'm sure it's going to be a great place to watch fight. There's no bad seat there. There's like a 10-year waiting period, I think, to get into a U2 show there. It's crazy.
Wow.
It's nuts. But anyway, so it's going to be the site of Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano having their rematch. which is going to be pretty huge. Irish versus Puerto Rico. 10-round contest in their first match. Taylor actually narrowly won on points, and instead of going right at it again, they kind of had different experiences doing their own thing for a little while. And now they've gotten around to the rematch, and it's expected to take place at the Sphere. It's not been confirmed yet. But $2.3 billion, that's all it costs to build a Sphere. Yeah, just take that out of the bank and get going. Build your own. It's like 366 feet tall and 516 feet wide. Doesn't sound like much, but boy, they pack some people into that. You can see it from everywhere in the Vegas skyline. It's a capacity of 18,600. Boasts the world's largest LED screen, and that's on the outside, but it also has screens on the inside, believe it or not. Initially budgeted at 1.2 billion. This happens all the time in Vegas. I think it reminds me of how New York was always controlled by the mob interests. So construction especially was always embedded with mobsters who would up the costs. So it went from 1.2 billion to 2.3 billion. It was apparently allegedly related to the pandemic, made the inflation happen. But it's probably been worth it for the owners because it is really a popular place. Dana White has already booked a venue for this year's Mexican Independence Day show and has promised the greatest live combat sports show anybody's ever seen, but it's kind of hard to do when that's happening this weekend. I think. I don't know. We'll see. Another story on that I will forget to mention if I don't do it now. Dana White has just dropped a bombshell as far as fighter bonuses for this one. He's actually really putting his money where his mouth is and offering $300,000 bonuses. $1.2 million set aside for 4 fighters to get bonuses. That will each be $300,000. And he just actually at the press conference set that rate. Which to me, I mean, I hate to say it, but it just kind of raises that question of like, why do you think you have to do that to get fighters to fight? Why do you think that works so well? That's because you pay your fighters pretty shitty rates for the kind of stuff they do, and these contracts are junk. Um, like that's life-changing money for some fighters is 50 grand. So you put up this 300 grand. That's a lot of incentive for somebody to go in there and fight stupidly to get the bonus instead of to fight smart and get a win. So anyway, that's just my soapbox thing for the day. I like it though. I do like anytime a fighter has an opportunity to make that kind of money by just putting on a good performance. I do like that aspect of it, but I just hate how it kind of shows how fighters have been screwed over the years. Why couldn't you have done that from the beginning, or at least starting a few years ago? You got to make a special exception for one event. Finally, give them the money they deserve for bonuses. Anyway, so that's it there. Then we also have one more fight card to talk about. If I can find it there. The PFL card. PFL. That's 3 bucks. So we got Mike Tyson and Jake Paul news. Keep talking about that this is going to be a real fight. They're going to fight real boxing rules, but my sources tell me that it's going to be 2-minute rounds. Well, there's no headgear. There's going to be no decision if the fight goes to the distance. There's going to be no judges. Yeah, right. Oh, they start changing the rules. Yeah, yeah. Well, they had all kinds of rule changes for one of his fights, and then it was supposed to be an MMA fight he was involved in one time, and they made it only standing on the feet, only punches. I'd never heard of that. We did that. Minimize damage, I guess, and it's because Tyson smokes too much weed. Yeah,
I mean, we still see him from years ago, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. That's what I've read. But Jake Paul came out, I think, like 2 days ago and started talking all kinds of smack about what you've heard isn't true. It's going to be a real fight. I also read that it's not going to be sanctioned as an official boxing match either. It's going to be an exhibition.
right. You know, this really, I mean, and I'm like, wait, I see being like, like, like I said before, day when the first the box career, the first guy I would have had a Saturday day would be like this. And the reason was, and that had a big fan base, especially on YouTube and like that. And then you would get that young fan base in there, and then you can,
Yeah, it's like the Anderson Silva fight that he had too. That reminds me of that. And Anderson Silva looked like he took a dive, like he had got hit by a phantom punch in that fight. So I think there is a possibility of that kind of shit. It could be more theatrical, even though it's supposed to be at Cowboy Stadium. So I don't know how they're going to hide it. That's bad acting.
right.
We'll see.
It's going to be money. Right, period.
Right.
No.
We're going to set you up in a plane, and you're going to fly in like Fan Man, Tony. Eighth round. Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's gonna be a shit show. I actually think the better script would be to have Tyson win by knockout. And what's it to Jake Paul to fucking lose a fight to Mike Tyson? Nothing. He's gonna be a millionaire either way. So I don't know how if that's how it's gonna unfold. I don't see Jake Paul agreeing to that if that's the staged script. But I do know that they're friends. They don't deny that they're friends, and they literally like talk about how much they care for the other. So I don't really think it's going to be a brutal knockout like some people are expecting that don't know how shit works with this kind of stuff. But I think it could be a staged knockout, and if it goes that way, I think it's more likely to be Jake because otherwise Jake looks like he's victimizing an old man.
Right.
It is really, I mean, he'll probably take more criticism than he will praise if that happens. But you know, you never know. Like actually, Teddy Atlas said a few weeks ago that you better be careful if you've made an agreement and it's all staged because Tyson will, he's one of those type of guys who will just, do his own thing when he gets in there.
Yeah.
That's what he's got to watch out for. Screw the contract. I'm knocking you out.
Yeah.
Uh,
Especially if he's one of his, crazy moves.
yeah. Oh, you headbutted me. I'm gonna rip your ear off.
Yeah.
Yeah. The White Buffalo.
Great. Break the ball.
Right. Yeah. He's a very smart guy. I mean, he comes across because of his lisp as a dumbass, but he actually is a very well educated guy. Uh, he knows a lot about history and great leaders of the past. He's a little bit crazy, but there's some intelligence behind it. And I like the way he talks about like kind of on the Rocky movie theme line of you have to have that fear. Like if I'm not scared to get in there, it's not worth doing. To him, he says. And it just reminded me of that. What was it, Rocky Balboa, where he had that quote that you got to be afraid. If you're not afraid, there's something wrong.
Great.
Yeah, right.
You're not in when you with a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a fear to you. You're right. That's something that makes you stop. Because you're focused on everything. You're focused. You're lasered in. You're ready to go because you re- you had that fear of your opponent, but like that fear of
respect for his ability. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's combat sports, it's so it all dates back to actual physical combat to the death in most cases, all these disciplines. Maybe not boxing so much, but I mean, sometimes back in the day in bare knuckle boxing, guys did die at the end of fights more commonly. So, it's a different sport, and you literally, I mean, it's like almost a requirement. If you're going to be good, you have to kind of have a healthy fear of your opponent, of what could go wrong, and that kind of gets you prepared for avoiding it, avoiding the shit that goes wrong.
And he was the funny. He was really like a weight class below me. But it seemed like, sometimes you fight somebody that makes his life than you, they feel really physical, really strong. I saw they would say that a lot. You know, they strong. Because he first one a guy one time that was like looking and maybe it's right. Like he was basically perfect and all tomorrow. Trying to get
Yeah, it's like when you go in there with a guy that they pull off the street. They say, "Oh, he's a good street fighter." He doesn't know how to fight. You think you're gonna wipe them out with him, so you take it easy, and then you start beating the shit out of him, and the coach says, "Stop." That used to happen to me a lot. Mhm. Right. Mhm. Right. All right. We got to get through this last MMA card. PFL having an event tomorrow night. Light heavyweight main event. Impa Kasangane. He is 15-4, fighting Alec Polizzi, 10-3, and bunch of good matchups on this card. Looks like they've already brought a Bellator guy over to PFL, Patricky Freire. Not the one of the Pitbull brothers, not the biggest name in the family, but Patricky, I think, has a little bit more fights. He's 25-12, fighting Clay Collard here, a guy who boxes and does the MMA for a living. I think he's done more MMA lately than boxing, but he's 24-12. Still seems to be figuring it out a little bit. He's had a rough couple matches recently, but this is a guy I think he matches up well with. I think this should be a good fight. Um, so that'll be interesting. Rob Wilkinson is also on the card at light heavyweight. He's 17-2, fighting Tom Breeze, 18-4. Got a guy with a great fighting name, Mads Burnell, 18-5 at lightweight, fighting Michael Dufort, 12-4. Sabadou Sai, before that, he's 16-7-2 at light heavyweight, fighting Joshua Silveira, who's 12-2. And we got Antonio Carlos Jr., 15-5 at light heavyweight, fighting Simon Biong, 9-3. And this guy's got quite the name to pronounce here. I'm going to take it slow. Dovletzan Yagtimorodov. Yes. All light heavyweight, who is 21-7-1, fighting Jacob Nito, who is 8-1. And then 4 more fights. Bruto Miranda, 16-4 at lightweight, fighting Brent Primus, 12-3. Gadzi Rabadanov, 20-4 with 1 draw, fighting Solomon Renfro, 11-4. And then Elvin Espinoza, 9-0 at lightweight, fighting Adam Piccolotti, 14-5. And then Marcelo Nunez, 10-2 at heavyweight, fighting Jordan Heiderman. That is not a good fighter guy's name. Heiderman. 7-0. No, 7-1 is Heiderman. And then we got some bad news in the sports world today. Not what you think. I'm not talking about OJ, but Gary Shaw. I believe we had an interview with him in the early days of um, Elite XC, I think it was. When he started that, he was involved in that. And then um, some boxers. I believe he's the one that hooked us up with the first interview we had with Crazy Horse. Uh, when we interviewed him back in the day, Gary Shaw had done a press conference where he handcuffed himself to Crazy Horse for a publicity stunt, or Crazy Horse handcuffed him to him or something. But and then we had Crazy Horse on when he was like in the middle of a drug deal. The last time he was one of our most horrible interviews, but the first time we had him on, he was a little bit more clear-headed. But Gary Shaw, I know we talked to him at least a few times on some of the conference calls for all that, because I was doing a lot of those back in those days.
For being
So rest in peace, Gary Shaw. It's it's not like a Don King resume that he had, but you think about how many people he was involved with and how many people he helped get to different levels at the sport, and what he did at the beginning to develop MMA and work with boxing at the same time. He was kind of one of the pioneers of that crossover stuff. So yeah, he had a good impact on the sport. He'll be missed. He was a good dude. He's fun to talk to. And I don't think he had fun getting handcuffed such crazy horse for the day, but otherwise, he did some good stuff. That was not one of his finest moments. Well, anyway, till next week, I guess that's it. Also, we talked about that Fundora fight. We could probably get some insider uh, background information on that fight from a guy who was there and did the commentating, because we've got feelers out for Al Bernstein to come back to join us.
yeah, that'd be great.
Years ago, I think it was like 10 years ago, we first did that interview with Al. And
I remember when you figure one of the things we were talking
yeah, it was.
about.
Yeah, I don't think it's on our Blog Talk Radio page or our Spreaker. Well, I know it's not on our Spreaker page because that's more recent, like a couple of years. I think it's on one of those platforms that got eliminated, unfortunately, over the years. So it's gone out into the ether. But I mean, it might be on my computer somewhere, but I don't even know if I can get that one to run again. That's how old that one is. But anyway, we'll redo it. I've got his agent told me that he's gonna reach out to him when he gets back from the fight, so that'll probably be sometime this week. I might shoot him a reminder. But that would be a great person to get on the show. And I was actually thinking, with the kind of stuff that Al does, and the events that he goes to, I wonder how well John Scully knows him. Maybe it would be a good thing to get John Scully to be on the same show and, like have their interviews cross over a little bit because that would be a good partnership because, John could give him stuff to have fighters sign and, he could get that going with the charity stuff he does. Fuck, I'm sure they've met before. I just wonder how tight they are. But yeah, those are the two big names I'm thinking about getting on. Maybe for the same show. Maybe we'll save him for another show. But yeah, he was just at all those Australian fights, so he's a great guy to talk to about all that. He wrote a good article for Ring Magazine about Australian fighters. Period. Like how the good ones are coming up through the rankings right now. So it's a good time for Aussie boxing. All right. Till next week. Thanks for stopping by and enjoy the fights for sure. History made. Adios.